This is Hot Mic. Hot Mic on the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 of Hot Mic, ready to rock and roll on this Monday morning. Wyatt Wheeler from Springfield will join us at 10:35 about the news on Missouri State and its imminent departure to FBS football. We'll get back into that in about a half hour, but some rather large news for those of us who cover high school sports in the area about one of the all-time greats that is going to be heading back to North Dakota. He left here winning 5 state championships in wrestling out of Henninger Scranton. Only 6 have ever done that. Then he wrestled the last 5 years in the Big Ten, 3 years at Wisconsin, 2 years at Nebraska, and he's got 1 year of eligibility left, and he'll wrestle at North Dakota State next fall as we welcome onto our show, back to our show. I haven't talked to him in 6 years since he left. Kyle Burwick joins us here this morning after the news this weekend that he'll transfer to NDSU. It's great to see you, man. Congratulations. I feel really old because I remember covering you when you were winning, I think, state title number 3 or number 4 in a row. But we were just visiting off air. Tell us about this process and this decision to come back home.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels good. Like you said, it's been a little while. Thanks for having me on. It had been something I'd been thinking about a little bit. You know, I was really happy. I got my degree from University of Nebraska. I got a lot of work done in the Big Ten. You know, I wrestled a lot, pretty far away from home. You know, it was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. Being 10 plus hours away from home, each place that I was. But I knew I wanted to come back and get my teaching certification done and kind of get on that right track. So, it was kind of a no brainer for me. Once I got in the portal and got in touch with the coaches at NDSU and going from there.
I have to ask, as I've asked other athletes, football, basketball, most specifically about the portal, a wrestler, how crazy is it on your end? Were you getting, especially the first time you decided to do it, were you getting offers left and right from schools you'd never heard of or heard from?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like, as a wrestler, you know, especially at certain weights, there's going to be a lot of schools that talk to you immediately when you put your name into the portal and you have all your contact information in there. You're going to get, and depending on, your credentials and stuff like that, you've wrestled against, coaches have seen you, you've kind of, they've seen what you have at the college level. When you're in high school, you're kind of like, coaches aren't really sure, they know what they're looking for when they're recruiting, but once you have some college experience under your belt, you kind of start getting texts and Instagram DMs, and they're DMing you on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. So it's kind of hectic to keep up with all of that. But if you have, I feel like especially the second time around, like I had a good plan in mind. I'm like, hey, I want to be closer to home and, prioritize all that. And it is tough because you don't want to make people feel like, hey, I'm just ignoring you, I'm not talking to you. But it is hard to juggle when you have it all on your phone. But, my family has helped me a lot in that process, and I'm very grateful for that. They've really kept me grounded, gave me really good advice, and just support at all times. That's been big. For a lot of kids that, if they put their name in the portal and they're kind of, you can kind of get lost pretty quick.
Yeah.
It could be chaotic.
Tell me about your relationship with Coach Blanc. How did that materialize and what that's been like going through this here over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah. Coach Blanc wasn't there for me coming out of high school. I hadn't really known him much. Obviously I grew up watching him wrestle and stuff. He had an amazing career, and he's been getting a lot more coaching experience, now that he's stepped into that head coach role. I talked to him a little bit, a couple years ago, but I didn't know him, as well as I would have liked to. So this whole process, I was cleared up front with the coaches at NDSU and the coaching staff and stuff. And I was like, hey, I want to get to know you guys a lot better. Like I want to have a strong relationship with you guys and continue to build that and grow that even when I'm done, within the next year. And so I can keep on supporting NDSU wrestling and North Dakota wrestling as a whole. So it's been great. I mean, those are great guys. And they're doing a lot. They got a lot of support up in Fargo. It was really cool for me to see, just the what the landscape looks like. And you know when I look back, it's like, hey, I have been out of high school for a while, so just to see what it's like, and to have the opportunity to go back to Fargo, and go back to represent North Dakota, and I don't take that lightly. That's something that I'm very grateful to have the opportunity, and the coaches are great. Coach Blanc, he's awesome. Very personable guy. When he took me around Fargo, it seemed like he knew he knew everybody, and that's what's great. That's what I grew up from. It's been awesome.
I remember covering the decision when you decided you were going to go to Wisconsin. For people that don't know, Kyle, or maybe forgot, was NDSU on your radar coming out of high school? Or I know because you had some big time schools, namely obviously Wisconsin, wanted you to wrestle there.
Yeah, no, definitely North Dakota State was, because and that's one thing I've learned in the last few years, especially, like, once I got to that age of being recruited, and then picking a college, and then transferring, and then finally, picking my final school and everything. Like, I've learned that, these type of decisions, although they're big, the best thing I can do is just make the best decision that feels right to me, and move on from there. And so I I thought about that a lot coming out of high school. I was like, man, it'd feel good to be home. I love representing North Dakota. Um, but a lot of the times, kind of getting out of my comfort zone, living in Madison, Wisconsin, and living in Lincoln, Nebraska, I grew a lot.
Mm.
I've and I'm that's starting to hit me now that I'm getting a little older, I'm maturing, I'm getting a lot more life experience and everything. And although there's plenty of ups and downs that come with that, um, I'm very grateful that I got out of my comfort zone, and I experienced a lot of that. So yeah, staying home was definitely on my radar, and it's where I'm from. It's in my blood.
The excitement of wrestling at the Shack. You've ever done that? I know you've wrestled at the Dome. Have you ever been in the Shack to wrestle or no?
I don't think I've competed at the
Okay.
Shack, but I've seen matches in there, so I'm excited for that. I've I when I was with Coach Blanc last week on my visit, I was telling him about, yeah, I remember cutting weight in here for Fargo in the summer and stuff, and I'm like, now it's come full circle. I'm like, it's time to compete in here.
Tell me about the experiences of wrestling. One of my all-time favorites is the state wrestling tournament. Hettinger, and I'm not saying this because you're on, has unbelievable between you guys and New Salem. There's a couple other Lisbon, a couple other Class B wrestling schools. It's crazy. Was that like going to state every year? A, expectation that you had to win, and B, having that support is better than I've seen for some basketball teams. You had that for wrestling
Yeah,
every year.
yeah. I don't know. It was just, like Fargo kind of seemed, it was like this sacred spot, and for us, for our program and everything, like um, like I've truly felt that we've had an amazing tradition here, and it goes far back before I was even in the program, and I was a little kid, and I was going to the Fargo Dome or going to Bismarck when state was there.
Yeah.
Um, one thing that'll always remember is 2017 when we won the state duels. Um, just look in the stands. I remember taking a picture after that match, and we just had like a whole section of just Hettinger
Yep.
Scranton fans, from all over the area. And it's just, yeah, that's really how I can put it. Like, it was, especially wrestling in the Fargo Dome, it was like this sacred place. And once we got on the bus and we were driving that 5.5 hours there, it was like go time, and it was to wrestle that many times there, and um just to feel that energy, feel that. To me, that's always what I think of when I see the Fargo Dome.
Your dad is still doing it. Tell me his reaction when you told him about NDSU. This is going to happen.
Yeah, he I have a lot of I feel like I've learned a lot more, even though I've been away from him, from being back home
Uh,
in college, because I'm always checking in. I'm checking in, and I'm like, hey, how's coaching going? How's the team doing? Um, he was excited. He was like, hey, this decision is yours. If you want to come back home, if you want to, you got to make the right decision and do what's best for you. So he was very supportive of me. I think he's happy to have me back closer to home. And that was one big thing too. It's just being able to cap off my career back where a lot of people have supported me, you know, um, no matter what part of the state they were from. Like especially when it came time to wrestle for Team North Dakota in the summer,
right.
or anything like that. Like North Dakota as a whole is just rock solid, and you can feel that support, all the way through the state, and that was a big reason too. I've I've made a lot of great relationships and met a lot of great people through the state of North Dakota that and they have always supported me no matter where I was. If I was at Wisconsin, Nebraska, now back home, like um, that means something. Like that means something to me. So he was, yeah, he was pretty happy, and I have family in Fargo and stuff, and my older sister graduated from there, and she's working. So
A couple of questions before we let you go. I am curious to have when you had the experience of wrestling at Iowa. Like, was that like the first? Like, what was your initial like? Okay, I'm actually doing this. We're at Iowa. What went through your mind when you did that for the first time?
yeah. So funny enough, in our little wrestling room here in Hettinger, we used to have a big the big box TV hanging up in the corner, and the coaches would always put in VHS tapes, and we would watch matches. It'd be like Minnesota versus Iowa from the 90s or something like that, and just to have that come full circle and to get the opportunity to be like, hey man, like this is where the brands wrestle, like being able to step on that mat and toe the line. um it's kind of, in the moment, it's one of those things where you can't let it get too big. You can't let it completely overwhelm you. But to let yourself feel those emotions and feel those feelings, it's important too. So actually, the second time I got to compete there, it was kind of like, all right, now it's go time.
Mm.
Now it's go time, and you know, it's just it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to know that you know everything you've all the work that you've put in from day one, from all the way back from when you kind of put your mind to it, it's kind of is culminating, and I'm still growing off that. So those will be experiences that I'll keep with me for the rest of my life.
All right, last question. Who was the toughest guy you wrestled in high school? Who was number one on the list in high school that you wrestled
Oh,
against?
in high school, um, shoot. Oh, that's gonna have to be.
Was there anybody?
I mean, obviously there were a lot of tough guys in there, and technically speaking, there was some things that, I'm a lot better at now in college, and I've been exposed to a whole lot of different ranges of styles, but I don't know. All those matches when me and Ryan Ripplinger wrestled, me and Rip are great friends. And we trained together all the time in the summer, but every time we wrestled, I knew it was like, you know, it was going to be a war. So those ones stick out to me, the
Okay.
Mandan finals, and,
Yep.
and we would wrestle at Rapid City and stuff. And I always looked forward to those. I hope Ryan did too. I know we kind of went back and forth there for a little while. So, um, to see that too, to see like kind of my class level and all the guys having success around, not only in North Dakota but all sorts of other places too. Like that's just cool to see. So
It's great to see you, bud. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing you on the mat this coming winter, okay? Thanks for the time today.
yep, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Kyle Burwick, Hettinger Scranton champion 5 times over, and now he'll be spending his final year of eligibility at North Dakota State's wrestling program after 3 years at Wisconsin and 2 years at Nebraska, one of the all-time great wrestlers. And for people that go to the state wrestling tournament that know what I'm talking about with Hettinger and New Salem, Beulah, Hazen, Lisbon, it's special stuff. And Hettinger had an unreal, Kyle was the leader of that. And I remember talking to him and his dad. His dad is still a coach, Randy. I want to say it was 2000, right around that, maybe that 17, 18 mark, when hearing there were some big-time wrestling schools that were interested in a small Class B kid. And he ended up wrestling for 5 years in the Big Ten, made the NCAAs a couple times, and now going to lend his experience at 133 pounds to the Bison in 2025. We'll take a break. We come back. The Bison have added a men's basketball transfer, and the NFL schedule trickle has begun. We'll do that when Hot Mike returns right after this.